Ready?
All right.
Is Michelle ready?
She ready? Okay. Okay. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to the regular meeting of the Lake Lure Town Council this March 13, 2018. I'd like to begin by calling the meeting to order and ask all of you to please rise for a minute or two as we do the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed on our community. As we gather here in the public service to our town and its citizens, we ask for your divine guidance and wisdom to help us govern effectively, to do what serves the greater good and best interest of our citizens, and to be good stewards and guardians of this beautiful place we get to call home. In your name, we humbly ask these things. Amen. 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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, we begin our meeting with the adoption of the agenda, and I would ask my colleagues here on the Town Council if they have any changes, revisions, additions, otherwise to make to the agenda before we adopt. Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the agenda as printed.
All right, the motion by Commissioner Cameron. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Commissioner Moore. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we'll follow our agenda. First item in the mayor's communications. I really have no formal communications other than to thank all the public for coming out this evening. It's a great turnout. It's a good sign that our citizens are interested in their government and how it operates. So thank you for coming. And I will point out that we have sign-up sheets over here. We have a general public comment period later in the agenda. We ask that those of you that would like to stand and have some comment or issue you'd like to address, please do so. We try to limit those comments to 5 minutes, no longer than that. So we ask you to please, before you come, try to get your comments or discussion into succinct order, and we would sure appreciate that, and I'm sure the audience would as well. With that, we move into item number 4, which are the town manager communications. Ron, you want to take us through that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have Donnie. Donnie, if you'll come up and give us a quick hydroelectric plant update, please.
Good evening, everyone. We've gotten almost all of the protective coating that was applied to the wrong spots off the generator. We still have to do around the bottom of the turbine. We've test fitted the head cover, the bottom ring guide, and the rest of it should be okay. So once we get the get it off the bottom of the turbine, we have to restack everything back onto the shaft and the turbine itself and lower it all down at one time.
You said everything that was in the wrong spots removed. Was this an error on the part of the people doing it for which will be reimbursed?
Well, it's an error on their part. They put it on machine surfaces, and we've had to remove that because the tolerances were too close. They put it on with a brush, kind of thick in areas, so we've had to sand a lot of it off.
So again, is there a reimbursement in the works?
We're going to have to talk with those once we get everything sanded off and see how much time we've had to spend on it. And
Yeah.
And try to get
You're
somewhere.
talking the man hours, extra man hours and everything involved there, so.
Yes, correct.
Is it costing us any additional loss in capability?
No, sir.
By
Not at
having
this
to do
time.
that? Because the lake's still down?
Yes.
Okay.
How much longer to get it up and running?
If everything goes back okay, I would say probably within the next 4 weeks or so.
As quick as we can get her done?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to get it done as quick as anybody. I mean, we're tired of having to mess with it as well. You know, it just seems like we try to get a test fit, something else needs to be sanded and taken care of. We have to pull it back out of the hole, get it taken care of, put it back, make sure it's in good, it fits good, then do the next piece. So it's just continuously putting pieces in, pulling pieces out.
The company that did that, are they aware of this problem?
Yes, Powerhouse Mechanical.
Okay.
So Donnie, we're going to be raising our lake in that period, and hopefully before we reach 4 weeks, we should have the lake pretty much back up to full pond or close to it. Are we going to be able to generate again with the large generator while we finish the installation of the small generator?
Yeah, absolutely. Once
We
we're
can
back-
isolate that?
Yes, we were operating the big generator only before we took the small generator off.
Yeah, but I know, but we had the plate over
Yeah.
so we can actually isolate that so it's a dry area when we pull the plate to put the
Yes.
parts in to work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we talk, is this the time to talk about lake level and stuff like that? I didn't see it anywhere else.
No, I don't think we have it anywhere else, Ron. We don't, no, go ahead. I think it is appropriate.
Donnie, your plan as far as starting back up and what you hope to achieve per day and what day you're going to start?
Well, I figured it up from what it rose today. We're coming up about 1/10 of an inch an hour, which is about 2.4 inches a day. And we're going to be at the 5-foot mark at 8 o'clock in the morning. And my plan was to just shut the floodgates down at that time. It's open about 6 inches now, just, it started rising over the weekend with the rains and stuff we had. But that water's gone now. The lake's back to what a normal dry run would be. We're going to shut that floodgate down 6 inches in the morning and then just let it go, if that's.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The plan is not to start any generation of power until we have the lake back to full pond, correct?
Correct, yeah, till we're back into our normal operating parameters, yes.
What? Now, full pond versus normal operating parameters.
Full pond is 24. Our normal operating parameters is 8 inches below 24.
Okay. I thought we had decided not to start refilling until the 15th. Why are we doing it the 13th, 14th?
It's only going to be about 2 inches high, or, above the
Yeah.
4-foot mark by the 15th.
But it's still what we have told the citizens,
Right.
so.
If you want me to keep it down, I will keep it down. It's no problem to me.
I think we're going to hear some discussion here in a bit, from some of the impacted communities around the lake.
Right.
So, let's hold that until we hear about that, and then before the end of the meeting, we'll make a decision policy-wise on that.
Right. If we shut the floodgates down, it's only going to be about 2 inches above the 5-foot mark at that time.
Yeah, we need to
about
understand what the impact of that might be. I don't know. 2 inches shouldn't really affect, but we will see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else for Donnie? All right, thank you very much, Donnie. Ron?
Thank you, Donnie. Dean Givens is here. He's going to give us a brief dredging update.
I believe y'all have a copy of the advertisement that we put out in the paper. And basically, as it states, we're going to have a meeting here on March 28th with all interested dredging contractors. We'll give them an overview of our dredging program and give them site visits to the Boys Camp and Morris Park Falls area. The contractors that attend that meeting will receive a RFP to be able to bid, which they will need to have it back by April 17th. And my plans are, as I stated in the off-site meeting at the Equestrian Center, that I hope to have this before council at your May meeting for you guys to make a decision on who our next dredging contractor will be.
What time's that meeting on 28th?
11 a.m.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dean, John, Ron.
So the actual dredging operation won't be able to commence until next year, is that correct? Because we're shut
Well-
down for the trout season.
Yeah,
at this point.
we're looking at hopefully being able to start dredging in September, right after Labor Day.
Okay. Having said that then, will this contract address in any way the material that has been placed over there in those pits? The disposal of that, removal of that?
It will. It'll be discussed with the oncoming dredging contractor,
Yeah,
because that spoils pit on the Boys Camp Road side is going to need to be, we're possibly looking at putting in a second dike in it to give 3 basins, and a lot of that sediment may be used to create that dike in that basin.
And that work can be conducted
That can be conducted through the
between
summer.
now and next September.
Right. The reason we're wanting to get somebody in here now is that gives them the summer to get that pit ready and to be able to get a sand plant if they're going to do a sand washing operation, get everything set up so that we can be dredging in September opposed to having them show up in September and start getting everything ready.
Our existing, the permits that were pulled for this, are they applicable, transferable? Are they in effect now? Will they cover the new contractor, or are there new sets of permits that the new contractor will need to?
No, the permits are given to the town, not to the contractor. So the town is permitted and it wouldn't affect a new contractor coming in.
Okay. Anything else for him? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean. All right, was just hoping that everybody will take their calendar out now and mark May 4th, 2018. We don't have a time yet, but just keep that day open for the Buffalo Creek and Weed Patch Mountain Trail opening. Again, that'll be May 4th, 2018. And we'll announce the specifics to that in April.
Okay.
Let's see, Shannon Baldwin's here with us. Give you an update on the Night Holloway project.
I sent a report to the board regarding our research, Night Holloway, based on our research. It is what we said it was the last meeting, which is a private road. As far as the recommendation goes, I know that work on a private road would require, similar to what we had decided for Spruce Hill, participation by the lot owners. So that's going to be staff's recommendation, that you've set a precedent. The town owns property adjoining Night Holloway, and so if we're going to make improvements there, then we would need participation from those adjoining property owners. So I think all those sentiments have been expressed to Mr. Knight. He may be here with us tonight. I forwarded you the letter that he sent to us, and he is here. So with that having been said, you have all of our research, you have an opinion from our town attorney. You may want to ask him to speak.
I'd like to publicly thank you. There's a very thorough and comprehensive report. I mean, it covered literally all the bases, and a very good job. As far as Mr. Knight speaking, I think it would probably be appropriate when we're discussing that subject, would it not? The rest of the council, how you feel?
I
I
agree.
think so. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Shannon. That was,
Thank you, Shannon. And that concludes my reports, unless you have any questions for me.
Any more questions for Ron?
I have a comment on our police report, and I think Sean's here. Chief? Yeah. Chief, could you come up? I know we don't have a lot of crime in the town and everything, but on your police report, one thing that I've always felt was somewhat lacking is I believe we as a council and even the citizens at point in times need to know the type of crime that does go on. And I would like to see on your report, and I'm pretty sure it's legal, like example, this report has 5 citations. I would like to know what those offenses are. No details, no confidential information about people, addresses, location, date, time, so on, just what the offenses are.
Okay.
The same on, you had 1 arrest, like know what the offense is.
Okay.
That kind of stuff I'd like to see on the report, and I'm sure Mr. Morgan, I assume that's legal, him providing that information to the council, so we know what type of crime is going on in the town.
Yes, I see that done quite a bit
Okay, all right.
in other places.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, and I don't know if any other commissioners have comments for or against that, or,
I think it can serve us all well.
We can do it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Y'all are doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Get ready for your golf cart stuff.
He's setting you up for that, Chief.
Yeah.
All right, well, before we get off of Ron's agenda, it's been pointed out to me that the only place on the agenda, and other than Mr. Knight requesting to speak in the public section here, the only place we have the Knight Hollow Way project is at this point. And so if we want to, if we want to resolve and address and finish that item, would we then have Mr. Knight speak at this time and have whatever discussion we're going to have so that we resolve that?
Yeah, I thought he was listed under unfinished business.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
And Ron gave us a paper at the beginning, which is the report, or the policy we saw before, and there's something about the funds.
Okay.
No town funds can be used for maintenance of private roads and driveway except upon prior approval by council. And that's what we did with Spruce Hill. So I think we're well within our right to do a sharing cost, or if we vote to do it otherwise, then I think we're within our right and without having to change the actual resolution.
Okay.
Mr. Morgan, does that sound right?
Ron and I talked about it, maybe tightening this up a little bit to better, I think, correct me, but if it, to better define perhaps when we could think about doing work on private roads at all because of the fact that they're private. Did I get that right, Ron?
I think so. That was the concern, and I think you said as long as we could establish a public purpose for that work, then that's what we needed to tighten up, if I remember
You
that
can sort of
correctly.
infer or read that into this, but it'd be better if it explicitly
Right.
set that out.
Because
it
it's-
looks like the council was making a case-by-case decision, the way it's written now,
Right.
to work on any private road, not just one that has property adjacent to it.
Yeah, because it does say except upon prior approval by council, and that's
Right,
what
and
we
you
did on Spruce
presumably
Hill.
would never approve it unless there was some.
Right, so,
Public
yeah,
purpose.
okay.
So we could bring you something next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy fix.
Okay, but we can go ahead and discuss it.
All right, well, Mr. Knight, would you have some remarks or comments you'd like to make before us? Now would be a good time.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
All right.
The main thing, and yes, I agree that Shannon did a great job in his research and Mr. Morgan. However, what I would question, and I'd hope that the council would question is, I mean, we're talking about two separate entities here. You're talking about a road, I understand. I don't agree that it's a private road because of what had transpired with the previous city manager, which you have on my first letter. But what I tried to explain, and maybe not well enough in my first letter, was the second entity here is a drainage. And the drainage being the culvert that goes under Night Highways. It starts on Memorial Drive on both sides. Somewhere, sometime down the road, somebody dug those trenches for the drainage, in the town drainage, I'm assuming. And that drainage, when there's roads built, had to go under those roads, and they put culverts in for the drainage. What's causing the issue of Night Hollow Way is the drainage, not the road. The road's fine, except we have a sinkhole because the drainage failed. In most cities, and I would assume, I mean, as far, I worked this kind of work, underground utilities for municipalities and cities and states for 42 years. I don't remember ever coming into a town or city where there were drainage along major highways like Memorial Highway that the city didn't maintain those. And I see city people out there cutting the grass, and that flows into a settlement pond, which then overflows into the lake just shortly down from where I'm at. the city has always regularly maintained that thing. I think, if, you correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't the city, aren't they the one that dredged that pond out occasionally? I'm assuming they
But they
do.
dredge it out, but that water's coming from all the property owners above that. That's not just city water, that's everybody that lives up on that area of the mountain. So that's a collective, any drainage is a collective system. So it's collecting from private property, it's rain.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying it, the rain itself that God sends to us, it doesn't come across our land.
Right.
But, and we maintain that on our land, but who maintains it in the city? I mean, isn't that what we pay taxes for, is for some body of the city to take care of the drainage from that place down into the lake so the lake doesn't get contaminated and things like that? Because that's what's going to happen if that collapses. That 48-inch culvert collapses, water's going to flow out into the main end of the road. It's going to flow down the road right into the lake. My sinkhole that I have there, and it's not just mine, of course, I really am speaking on behalf of the other people that live and work on Night Holloway. But it's an issue for us because it's a danger. There's a hole there and somebody's going to end up driving in or falling in or something like that. And also some of our utilities are exposed, which makes it, you know, an issue for us just to try to keep those from breaking or falling in and freezing in the wintertime. But it would be my wants for the city council to consider that is a drainage issue, that culvert isn't part of the road, that morally and logically speaking, a city would take care of those types of drainage issues, not property owners. I don't know of any property owners that will come into a city and take care of culverts and ditches and drainage for the city. It just doesn't make sense. So I wish you all would consider that before you go too far into this.
Were you aware, sir, of that culvert and situation when you applied to have the road changed to Night Holloway, named after you?
The culvert, well, first let me correct one thing there, and it says in Shannon's report that we wish to have that named after us. I built the road from the bottom of that hill up to where my cabin is, about 200 feet. The first 100 feet was part of that eyebrow that the city has always maintained and take care of since I've been, well, for 4 years while I was there. From that place forward, I mean, I cut 110 trees down by myself. I used every one of those trees to build the cabin, to build furniture, to use for firewood, what have you. I felt I had the right to name that road.
So you built the road?
I built the road from about 100 feet in, where the bottom of the hill starts up, just off the eyebrow.
Is that
From the eyebrow up.
where that pontoon trailer is sitting? Is that where you started there?
Yeah, from that point forward, or up the hill, I mean, yes.
Okay. Again, back to my question though. When you bought the property and then had asked for the name to be changed, were you aware of the culvert situation? And were you aware that it was a private road at the time?
I had no idea of the culvert. I mean, it's been 14 years ago. I'm sure I would have thought there's going to be a culvert under there. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't go look at the culvert, make sure anything about the culvert. And to know it's a private road at the time, it wasn't. I mean, I was told by Chuck Place at the time, in 2004, that was an abandoned road. He said it was a public road, and they were going to abandon that road. Now, I'm assuming an abandoned road, public road, would be turned into a private road at that time.
Well, even if he told you that, and I understand from the research, there's no record that that road ever really was abandoned. Is that correct, Shannon, if I recall correctly? There was no record of the road being abandoned. There's no record of it ever being a public road.
I think there's on one of the drawings, it calls it a public gravel road.
A draw. But,
A plot plan.
yeah.
So I'm just assuming that at one time it was a public gravel road, but then sometime down the road.
We could kick that around all night, but understand, Mr. Morgan, you've looked at this, and your legal determination is, it is a private road, and we technically have no liability, is that correct?
That's correct, and I know the drawing he's referring to. I've looked at the various deeds along the road, or the property owners, his neighbors. Sometimes you see it listed as private, sometimes it says public, but these are just drawings that are attached to the deeds to illustrate, the conveyance.
And you've lived there how many years, sir?
14 years.
And you've always considered it private for your own purposes, haven't you? Honestly.
Considered it private for my purposes? No, I mean, anybody can come up that road. I would not stop anybody from coming up that road, if that's what you're asking me.
Okay.
And I had a private put on that sign down there. I asked the fire department if they'd put private on there for me, because it's a narrow road, it's 8.5 feet wide. There's no place to turn around at the top, and I thought that might deter traffic, from coming up in there.
Okay.
It was always considered to me that the eyebrow portion of that thing down there belonged to the city, and everything up above there was my neighbors, as you called them. There's nobody else lives up there but my cousin and I, and that we would maintain that, which we have done. And Ron Place said that the city would maintain the eyebrow part of that, and which they did for 4 years. And then,
I understand there's 8 parcels there, and we own 2 of them. And I am not opposed to us sharing the cost to repair it, just like we did with Spruce Hill last month. So that's where I stand.
yeah, and I'm not opposed to sharing repair of the road. I just don't want to have to repair the culvert. That's a whole another entity. There's 2 separate issues as far as I look at it. And I hope the town council looks at it that way too.
So you do not feel you should share in the repair of the culvert?
The culvert and the drainage, yes.
Well, here, I went out there this afternoon to have a little better understanding myself, and walked and looked. I mean, that's more of a creek. I don't think it's not a wet water drainage, just when it rains. It's actually a creek that comes down through there. So I guess I'm having a bit of an issue with why you feel like that's not part of the property owners up there responsibility to keep that culvert up, because if it wasn't a culvert there, it'd have to be a bridge or something. And I understand, I'm hoping we come to a resolution and find something that suits everybody. I do know that there, where the eyebrow, where that pontoon trailer is sitting, you have a 202 and your name there, and then on the tree you have a private drive sign on that tree there.
No, it's actually my cousin's, that's not mine. But.
Yeah, but so I can't see that. First of all, it's a state highway, it's not the town's, so that's an issue there. It's really not the town of Lake Lure's responsibility. It's not their highway. It's a state highway there. So I'm not sure, and you're feeling that it's the town's responsibility to maintain the road, the sides, and then the right-of-ways and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's something that the state should be. I don't know where their responsibility stops and starts on that. But, that being a state highway, maybe it's something that the state needs to be involved in as well.
Well, Mr. Kelly,
Depends on if it's in the right-of-way.
Depends on if it's in the right-of-way.
when this sinkhole first came in there, the first thing I did was called the city and the state. They both came out at the same time, and they both just said, that's not ours. Then, I can't remember.
How long ago was that?
That would have been when this thing first started. I guess it was maybe November or December, somewhere.
Just recently?
Yeah.
I think the reason that sinkhole's like that is that water's actually going underneath the culvert.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not even made, installed correctly on the upper end.
to the head wall.
The water's not all going into the culvert, it's going under so that's what's caused it to wash out down there. I'm not an engineer by any means,
But if you go up inside the culvert, it's all rusted out and big holes in it too, unfortunately. So, yeah, it's been there a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, and the state finally got back to me and said they checked all their records, and they said we have records way back beyond 1925, and the state has never put a culvert in there, they told me. So that's when I asked.
Do you think the
city-
developer could have been the one that put that culvert in?
Could have been, I have no idea. All I've ever been able to find out about that culvert, and I've contacted, and I know you, Shannon, talked to William, with the Corps of Engineers, Elliott. I contacted him, he hadn't got back to me yet, asking maybe if the Corps of Engineers, and since it's a creek, not a drainage thing, maybe the Corps of Engineers put it in there. I don't know who's put it in there. But it's been in there since before 1959, that's all I've been able to ascertain.
Is there a reason it needs to be as wide as it is?
The area there coming to?
The entrance there, the drive. Is there a reason it has to be that wide?
Well, it's because of the Mr. Esposito's business that's there. He widened that when he came here in 2003. He put an extra 20 feet in there.
Of culvert?
Of culvert.
Okay, well then I suppose if he put that 20 feet, we know who's responsible for that 20 feet.
Yeah, that 20 feet, yeah.
Would seem to me.
He did that so he could widen his parking lot.
Yeah. Because,
And that's where it's under.
I mean,
He
if,
didn't put it in properly. That's where it's washing up
that's
under
exactly
that.
right.
His 20
That's
feet.
where the water's going underneath the culvert, not through the culvert. So.
No, it was the same though before he did that. It's,
Well, I couldn't see it then, but
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
just saying, I think it's way wider than it needs to be for egress and ingress into your property and everything there. That'll have to be considered when it's repaired, I think. If Mr. Esposito wants to have it wider for his business, then that's something that he'll have to address, I think. That's my personal opinion.
yeah, well, Mr. Esposito wanted to pave that at one time, and that's back in '04, and the city adamantly told him he could not, just like my cousin wanted to pave her portion of that driveway. They adamantly told him they could not because the city owns this, we were told, and they didn't want anybody to put pavement on that eyebrow.
Is that in '04 when you got that information from?
From Ron
then
Place,
Chuck Place?
or Chuck Place, I'm sorry. Yes.
All right, well, my understanding of where we are, we've had a contractor go out there and look at the situation, come back to us with a proposed solution with an estimate. We've got those numbers and we've communicated that, I think, to.
Got two quotes, Mark?
Yeah, we've got two. Based on our town attorney's review of all of the information concerning the ownership of that road, his conclusion is, at this point, and I don't see that changing, it's a private road, was never abandoned or officially conveyed, regardless of what representation someone on town staff may have made, and regardless of what what information had been presented on some attachments to document that. So, I mean, the official, I guess, I'm hearing the official position of the town is that it's a private road, and unfortunately, Mr. Knight, that hasn't changed. In terms of what the town is willing or not willing to do, we have an ordinance that, in a sense, prohibits unless we decide to change that, that we're not able to spend money directly to work on that road. However, I think we've determined it is within our purview as an adjoining property owner to participate in the repair for that road. So unless there's a change in what we know or in the information that becomes presented to us, is that our position at this point as a town council? We are willing to participate, but not to pick up the tab for the repair,
It is
not to
my
assume
position.
control of the road, right?
And what about the culvert?
I mean the culvert,
The whole problem.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't look, and that's what I was asking the city council to look at this. This is actually two separate entities. There's the drainage, the culvert, and there's the road. And, the ordinances are all about the road. The problem is not the road, it's the culvert.
Culvert under the road.
Yeah,
Okay.
the price was around $12,000. The town would look at paying, since we own two lots, I believe it was $3,000 is what the calculation worked out. And in that process includes the backfill and additional road bond over that and riprap on each end of the,
Is that
Trench.
bid to replace the whole length of that?
40 feet of it, because the one piece in there is new, that was put in by the gentleman with log cabin, so there's 40 feet that need to be replaced, and that's the cost We got two bids, the other one was $20,775. We got a lower bid for not to exceed $12,000.
The total length would be 60, and it's to go back with the original size, which is 48-inch. It would be a total replacement of the culvert. You can't do this in pieces. You can't join plastic to metal, and it basically requires you take everything out and go back with a 60-foot length culvert
So
to put
Tim
it
wa-
back the way it was.
Tim was gonna do that then, so it's gonna go all plastic.
That's right, double wall
Okay.
plastic is what would go in. We would coordinate, we would oversee, and we would cost share. So
Does that-
we would not be passing on administrative oversight or project management to the property owners. We would eat that cost, but we would participate as a property owner and prorate that out per lot, so.
Does it have to go back that length?
That's what was recommended, that we go to 60.
Personally, I don't see why we couldn't cut that down and, rip wrap and fix the bank where the creek will run its natural course. And possibly that's a way to cut the expense down some. Secure that, the banks of that and fix it where the creek will go its natural run and go into that culvert and not have a 60-foot wide culvert to service one business and two houses. Just an opinion.
Can we look at that? Can the contractor look at this?
Oh, yeah, he can get
Yeah.
a price.
And I guess Mr. Esposito, maybe he's willing to pay more of the project if he wants to, if he wants it to remain the 60 feet, for his benefit, for getting in, for his parking lot, if that's something that could be approved.
Pay the difference between the 40 and the 60.
He put the 20 in.
Right.
Well, I think just to wrap this up, I think the town, and I think all the commission have expressed the genuine interest to try to do something to help and to relieve you of some of the burden of having to do this. We have to act in a responsible way, and, we have a legal opinion about the ownership of the road, and we really need to make decisions that are in concert with that and treat all property owners in the town fairly and according to the rules that we have. So right now, unless I'm hearing something different from the council, that's kind of where we leave it, and that option then remains on the table. And we just ask if there's a way to reduce the cost or somehow help lessen the burden on Mr. Knight and other homeowners up there, we will do that, within the boundaries of what we can do as a town, so.
To speak to Mr. Kilby's suggestion there, one thing, Mr. Esposito put that 20 feet in there new to extend his lot, but that makes a place where it's good, it's not gonna break down, where we can still egress and our roads there, our driveway there.
Oh, over that,
You know,
yeah.
so if you tear that out, now we have no access anymore.
It all has to be torn out to replace it. the
Yeah, to
whole
replace
piece,
it,
So,
if you're gonna replace it all, but if you were just to replace 40 feet of it, now you've taken away 20 feet, that would always be good, for the next 40 years would be good. So you might wanna think about that, I don't know.
All right,
Mr. Mayor?
yes, sir.
Just to sort of wrap this up, if Mr. Baldwin sent a nice letter to property owners at the other area that we were working on, he could do the same with this, if that's what council would like to do, just to see if there is an interest from adjoining property owners.
Does that be our pleasure? Yeah, well, I don't think we need a motion, or,
can
yeah,
just
why
go
don't
ahead and
you,
do that.
We just
Shannon,
hope
if
we
you
can
can
find a
do that.
solution.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Right.
can do that.
all right, well, thank you, Mr. Knight. Let's go ahead then and move on in our agenda. That wraps up the town manager's communications, and we move into the public hearings, and we have three of them this evening. The first one is in regards to ordinance number 180313, and this is to consider the adoption of a golf cart ordinance for the town of Lake Lure. We have a list of folks that have signed up to speak, and we'll take them in the order in which they've signed up. And again, just to remind you, if you could try to limit your comments to less than 5 minutes, we would greatly appreciate that. So first citizen on the list here is Barbara Searcy. Ms. Searcy, if you would come up. And when you come up, just please identify yourself and your address in the town before you...
My name is Barbara Marsh Cersei, and I live at 201 Havner's Point off of Buffalo Shoals Road, Point Circle. I probably should have let somebody speak before me. I'm just concerned about the ordinance. One of the meetings when I was here, you were talking about maybe having just a section near Rumbling Ball where people could go from Apple Valley into Rumbling Ball. If that, then I understand that it's been opened up on different roads within the town of Lake Lure, like Buffalo Shoals would allow golf carts and maybe Boys Camp. And that's what I'm speaking on. So I have a real concern for anyone driving a golf cart on Buffalo Shoals Road. It's all we can do to drive it ourselves. And so my concern to you guys is that I do not feel that Buffalo Shoals Road is a road for golf carts. I have a house at the beach, and the neighborhood I live in is very big, and we do have golf carts there. And the next thing you know, somebody's letting a 15-year-old drive it. They're driving at night with no lights, and we have a security force that does just enforce our golf cart rules. Now, I will tell you this, even with my renters, when I tell them not to take it on the main road, they take it on the main road. So when you establish people driving Buffalo Shoals back and forth to Rumbling Ball, maybe all the way from the bridge or the dam, that is a scary thought.
That's not included.
Okay, good. Are we talking just that area?
This is a small segment of Buffalo Shoals down by Fairfield and the Rumbling Ball and the golf courses.
Okay, so we're not talking about the
And
whole
Buffalo
Buffalo
Creek
Shoals
and
Road
Buffalo-
at all? Okay, guys, fine, thank you.
Okay.
As long as I'm not getting behind golf.
And you cannot drive it to the ABC store in place of your boat.
Well, that's what I was, oh, I'm complaining, but we're not moving the liquor store, right?
I
Thank you,
remember,
guys,
yeah.
appreciate it.
Okay.
That's another
Thank you,
public hearing.
Ms. Cersei. Next on our list is Mr. Ken Jordan. Ken?
Hi there, I'm glad to hear about the limitation, but I wrote this, so I'm going to read it anyway. This is a proposed proclamation called YOLO Week, which, as you know, stands for You Only Live Once. Whereas it's been proposed that allowing golf carts to occupy State Road 1306, also known as Buffalo Shoals Road, as well as other roads within the town limits of Lake Lure, whereas this has been suggested to improve the quality of life and the enjoyment of the citizens of Lake Lure and visitors thereof, therefore, let it be resolved that, number one, the town of Lake Lure will purchase a one-week life insurance policy for the mayor, each town council member, the town manager, and the police chief in the amount of $500,000, with the beneficiary to be the closest living relative of each person listed above. Each office holder named herein will select a date and time which is convenient to that person between March 13th and March 20th. Whereas it's desired to evaluate the variety of traffic and lighting conditions, each time selected must be separated by at least 120 minutes from each other selected time. Each office holder named herein, utilizing a legally approved golf cart type vehicle, will undertake an unaccompanied drive between the Point of View restaurant and the gatehouse at Rumbling Ball Resort and return to Point of View restaurant. Each office holder then would report A, the number of vehicles that were delayed, blocked by the golf cart. B, the number of vehicles which sounded their horns. C, the number of vehicles which passed or attempted to pass them. And D, the number of injured drivers and or damaged golf carts. I think that a one-week proclamation for You Only Live Once and this exercise would prove that it's not a good idea.
Once again, this does
I know.
not affect from Point of View.
I know, but you didn't tell me that
Rumbling
before I
Ball.
wrote
You
this.
should have known. You should have asked.
Yeah,
Anyway,
All right. well,
I'm glad that you're cutting it back.
thank you. For the benefit of everyone, this is a
And then,
small segment of Rumbling, or of Buffalo Creek, oh, good,
Ms. Paula Jordan,
yeah.
I'm
next.
Paula Jordan, and I coincidentally live at 119 Buzzards Place also. Yes. I understand and am grateful that the golf carts are not going to be going any farther than we have just been told. I do, however, think it would be a good idea for me to discuss a few of the concerns I have, even for a small exercise like this. The golf carts probably have a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. The town speed is 35 miles per hour. That means that closing speeds for an accident under legal speeds could be anywhere between 15 miles per hour and 55 miles per hour, depending on which way the accident occurred. I'm not sure whether the golf carts are built to sustain that. We have blind curves, we have steep hills. You can't see around the curves, you can't see through the hills. Somebody going very fast, catching up on an unseen, very slow vehicle could cause a lot of trouble. Pedestrians are actually safer on these roads than somebody would be in a golf cart. Think about it this way. Pedestrians' shoes are a lot quieter than a golf cart. They can therefore hear oncoming traffic a lot better than a golf cart, and they can get off the road safely much, much more easily than a golf cart. Even a minor accident with a golf cart could cause somebody to be thrown from it. On this road, that could involve falling down a steep slope. There was a resident in Lake Lure here some years ago, Bud Schichtel, who used a golf cart to cross the road down here by the golf course, I think it was hit and sustained extremely bad injuries. To finish, I'd like to say something about the villages in Florida. They don't have to worry about our steep hills. They don't have to worry about our big curves. Nevertheless, in a period of 7 years, they had, let me get this right. A period of, in 7 years, they had 13 fatalities. And in the next couple of years after that, they had more injuries, but no more fatalities. Just for general information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, and last on our sign-up list is Mr. Phil Rattano. Phil?
I want to thank you. I'm going to be really short and sweet. The first thing I want to do is I want to appreciate the effort you all put into this over the last several months. We at the resort had a workshop today, and we're looking forward to this. As I mentioned to you, it's really to improve the connectivity, within the resort. Second thing I'd like to make known to the public is those roads are already open to mopeds and bicycles, which go slower than golf carts. And historically, if you look at the state records, there's more fatalities with bicycles than there is with a lot of other means of transportation. So already we're allowing bicycles to go on those roads. And I drive on Buffalo Shoals, and a lot of people do. And I see joggers, I see bikes, and I have to use discretion and safety concerns and things of that sort. So really, this is not anything different from that standpoint. And also the same with mopeds. I see mopeds driving down 64, 74 from Lake Laurel all the way down to Rutherford, Spindale every week, from that standpoint. So really and truly, this is not that much different than other things and other precautionary measures. But primarily I want to do is I want to thank you very much, and we're looking at significantly improving the connectivity, particularly in the resort, from the golf course to golf course and also from the restaurants. So thank you again.
While you're up there, I would ask you to comment on this. The resort, for I guess forever, has allowed golf carts to freely transit throughout the resort. Granted, it's a private resort, but I live there, and I can tell you there are many, many treacherous roads with blind curves. And is there a history of serious injuries or accidents in the resort where a golf cart and cars run into them? We've had a long history of that there, right?
That's true. Golf carts are permitted in the resort. Sorry, thank you very much. Golf carts are permitted to drive through the resort roads, all 27 miles. And obviously the roads have a lot of different terrain as far as slopes and as far as curves and things of that sort. No issues, no fatalities. The only issues they have been with golf carts is on the golf course where somebody's gotten too close to a culvert and maybe fallen over a creek. I've also done homework, and ever since the state enacted this ordinance in 2010, with 75 communities, there has been 0.0 fatalities in the state of North Carolina. If you want to look that up, you're more than welcome.
All right, thanks.
Phil, I have a question
Yes.
on a different subject, and I don't see another place here on our agenda where we can talk about it. We had talked about lake levels earlier, and I was talking, one of your maintenance guys out there called me today and asked about the lake level, and I told him what our policy was and where we were and all, and he said, what we're facing is, says right now, I think you have 7 teams out there.
Last
or
week,
8.
we had one team.
Yeah.
This week, we have 7 teams.
Right.
Next week, we have 1 team.
Right. His concern was, he said that you're using multiple docks. And that he says if the lake comes up really any more than it is right now before Sunday when they're leaving, that it will prevent access to some of the docks. I think I asked him to send me a photograph, and he said he would. Unfortunately, I didn't get it, but the temporary docks you set up, I think maybe off of Quail Cove.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
that if the water got any higher, they weren't gonna be able, that they were gonna have to move them or something, and it was just gonna be a real mess, but he was asking if there was a way we could keep the lake at, the level it is, instead of starting it up on the 15th to wait until Sunday, which is what, the 18th? And anyway, I was hoping someone would be here to speak to that tonight, to give us a little more information, because we don't,
Commissioner Moore, let me just mention this, is that what we'd mentioned earlier is that if you couldn't raise the lake back in early February, the best thing to do is to sustain the current level, for that. From what I've heard, now this is subjective because it's based upon rain, fall, and other circumstances. But from what I've heard earlier, is if it goes up a few inches, it's not going to be significant. But if it goes up maybe 10, 12 inches or more, it could be significant.
Okay.
So use your discretion based on that information.
Okay.
I was going to say, this afternoon, Mr. King.
Sounds like if we start up on the 15th, you've just got 3 days till the 18th, and we'll only pick up a couple inches a day, you're fine.
Not an issue. But if we expect to forecasting some heavy rains, and then by this weekend, it's going to significantly fill the lake up, could be an issue.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
We will, in terms of managing the level, we will take that into account.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Just so the board knows, Mr. Kane left me a voicemail saying that 4 additional inches would hurt that level. That's where they're at from where we're at right now, which is just a little bit above 5 feet.
Okay, well, good.
So
That was what I had asked for when I talked with the maintenance guy today. Okay.
I forgot to sign up to comment on the.
Okay, sure. And please introduce yourself and your address.
Joyce Fair, 159 Deer Trail, I'm president of Lake Lure Village Resort. And I had written a letter to Ron February the 14th, supporting the golf cart ordinance. I think it's a good idea to maintain safety and harmony in the community. But I asked for an exception for Lake Lure Village. You may not know, but Lake Lure Village is at the end of Boys Camp Road. I've lived there for 10 years on Deer Trail. We have 2 entrances to Lake Lure Village. They're only connected by public road. One is at the end of Boys Camp, and then one is off of Cutaway, Deer Trail. I live on Deer Trail. 10 years ago, we built a house that came with a golf cart, and we have been operating a golf cart on the public road for 10 years. The former police chief gave us permission as long as we had our lights and our mirrors and our little triangle on the back, and we've had no incidents at all. We have to go to the village to take our trash down there. We have to pick up our mail down there. We have no public services on Deer Trail. It's a 1-lane road, dead end, and it's the only way we can connect to the other part of our property is to travel less than a half mile on Cutaway, and which is 20 miles an hour, and then Boys Camp, that little section there, that's 25 miles per hour. So it's all less than 35 miles per hour. So we had made a request, and I hadn't heard if that was being considered or not.
It is being considered, and I think when we go into the actual discussion of the motion or resolution, we'll bring that up and decide how best to proceed.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, well, if there are no other members of the public wanting to come forward, then I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Cameron, is second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, well, that brings us to our second public hearing, and that concerns ordinance number 1803-13A. And this is an ordinance amending section 92042A of the zoning regulations regarding the use of residences as residential vacation rentals. There has been a sign-up sheet out there, and we have not had any member of the public as yet sign up. This is the last call for anyone who would like to comment on the proposed changes to vacation rental regulations in public hearing. Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Cameron moves, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kilby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, that brings us to public hearing number 3, which is having to do with the 2018-2023 capital improvements plan. Ron, you have we're going to take this up now. You have a presentation. As we're in public hearing, I would point out we have one person, Mr. Knight, who's left, who wanted reserve the right to comment only. So I assume doesn't want to exercise that right. So, Ron, you want to take us through this? Yeah.
Yeah, he might have simply signed the wrong one. Get a blue?
So we don't have popcorn, but I think we do have cake for anybody.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we're going to do a quick presentation on the 2018-2023 Capital Improvement Program. This to work.
Stretch tight.
Don't walk to the left.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so what is a capital improvement program? You're asking yourself. It's a flexible financial planning tool that looks into the future to forecast our town's equipment, building, and infrastructure needs. It forecasts not only expenditures, but also revenues, which is very important when you put together a 5-year CIP. What do we include in a CIP? It's items that have a life expectancy of greater than 1 year and a value of greater than $5,000. Now, there's always exceptions to that rule. You'll see sometimes that we'll put extraordinary plans or something in there that might be less than $5,000. But in general terms, we do have a definition in place of greater than 1 year, or yes, longer than 1 year and a greater than $5,000. How does this look on the street for folks? Of course, all of our buildings are in it, the fire station, all of our large trucks, dump trucks, our police cars, of course, our boats, the generator, which we talked about a little bit tonight at the hydroelectric dam, and our golf course, so property. We prioritize our CIP projects in 4 ways. One is a health and safety issue. That always gets a higher rating than your other projects. Second is it's mandated by some state or federal agency. Third, it's a replacement item, which most of ours are in this plan. And fourth, an expansion item, which means it's a new program. To give you an idea of how this works, you'll see a project that we pulled out of the current CIP. It's for the Lake Operations Department. It's actually a visitor center hub and marina. As you know, the boardwalk is in pretty rough shape and is needing replacement. A project came up through the Tourism Development Authority that is in consideration now by the town council of taking a look at the marina building and the boardwalk as one larger project. This is one of the larger projects in our CIP. It's about $3.7 million. While some of that would be local funding, meaning taxes, second, it could mean private dollars. So don't sit here and think that that $3.7 million could be all public funding. Lots of descriptions. What you'll see here is a departmental priority of 1, and you'll see an organizational priority of 2. So the departments will put it in their priority, and then that will come to me. I will put them in an organizational priority, all the projects in order, and then the board has the opportunity to change those priorities. And here we talk about not only the expenditures, planning, any land acquisition, construction, or equipment, but we also talk about the source of revenues. And as you can see here, that private funding is about $500,000 of a lease purchase agreement of about $1.1 million. What then happens is that project goes into a lake operations summary. You'll see that it's actually number 1 there. The organizational priority is the code to the left. You'll see it scored in number 2, and there's 3 projects that they have in their first year funding category. In a CIP, you always, the board will always fund the first year priorities, but your years 2 through 5 are planning monies. That then goes to a general expenditure summary for all the departments, and so you'll see each department there in the CIP. Police, fire, public works, parks and rec, beach and marina. And then we take a look at all of our revenues as well. And what you'll see there is at the 5-year, this is an important number, 5-year total of about $17.7 million worth of CIP projects have been identified for the town of Lake Lure. One of the sheets that we put together, which is available on our website, is a list of the first year projects and their priority. There are 28 first-year projects that have been identified from the self-contained breathing apparatus replacement at the fire department all the way down to the town center vision book, which is project number 28. Now that totals about $1.4 million, but as you know, we never have enough money in order to complete all of those projects. And so what ends up happening is the board will set their priorities from this list, and then we will go down through there and establish funding recommendations. And normally we can get within the first, say, 10 to 15 projects. Just so you all know, normally what we'll get down through priority-wise. We also have not only a general fund, but a water and sewer fund. And you'll see there's about $11.5 million of projects, and that is getting ready to go up. As you know, we are looking at alternatives to a green line project, and so the year 1 cost there is about $1.2 million. We also have a hydroelectric fund. You also know that we are looking at some serious renovations that are needed at the dam, and so this number will go up before next month when we look at this again. Right now, we're projecting $130,000, and we know that roughly those first 4-year costs are about $5 million. So the next step, this was presented to the town council last month. In February, we will continue to review projects, establish priorities, consider the revenue and expenditure impacts. A public hearing is being held tonight, of course, and the scheduled adoption for your CIP is in April. So we thank you all for your time, and if we have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Okay. Last call for anybody who wants to weigh in on this from the public, now having heard that presentation. If there are none, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Cameron makes the motion. A second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Moore. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. So that concludes our public hearing segment of the meeting and the audio-visual component.
I did vote aye. I was trying to clear my throat. I did vote aye.
I counted you. All right, that brings us to item 4 on our agenda, which are the council liaison reports. Anybody want to jump up and go first here?
Sure, I'll go.
All right. You went first last time,
Yeah.
Mr. Cameron, I believe. So let's let
Board of Adjustment met at their regular meeting on the 27th, and they had 5 cases. We now have a grand total of 300 vacation rentals in the town. The Parks and Rec Board met March the 1st. Ranger Katie Shipe of Chimney Rock State Park appeared before the board requesting permission to conduct an educational fishing workshop in Morse Park. That was approved. Each of these workshops will only be 1 hour in length, and they will be held during the month of June and September. Will not conflict with the equestrian games. Other things, other events in Morse Park again, and they will be held out back here. Again, they're only 1 hour in length whenever they are held. As Ron mentioned earlier, May 4th is a grand opening for the Weed Patch Mountain. The part of grant request, I understand, has been closed out, but we have not received the check, and they're waiting for the grand opening. Is that not correct?
Right, and there's some minor issues.
Okay. There have been several work days scheduled for the Ditmer Watts Park. The Flowering Bridge is purchasing a counter, and we're actually purchasing 3 or 4 at one time because the others will be used at Weed Patch Mountain and Buffalo Creek Park. The Flowering Bridge, of course, their theme this month is Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Christmas lights have been removed. A lot of work going on there. The golf course, Dale's report wasn't much going on at the golf course. That means everything is down on golf. So there is on March 29th, there will be a golf meet with 6 schools competing. And that includes our own Lake Lure Classical Academy, who will be competing in that golf meet. Morse Park, Chairman Walters was talking about the Boys Camp Road property that we purchased. They just had a walkthrough of that property this past, a couple of days ago. We're looking at trying to get at least some type of temporary use in play by this summer and fall. One of the things that had been talked about, of course, overflow parking is a potential. That's a great place for it. And seeing what we have to do. There's a lot of things going on there. The steering committee is still, actually, I think we're getting together to look at construction drawings for the restrooms tomorrow. Based on the council asking the Parks and Rec Board to discuss whether or not they would like to have an alternate member position, they did, after a discussion, unanimously approve an alternate member for the Parks and Rec Board, and they also nominated Maureen Bay, who was the only applicant on file. Now, in order to do that, we have to do the resolution, update the resolution to allow for an alternate position, and while we're doing that, we need to also include the removal of board member clause, which is not in their resolution. And then we would have to approve that next month. I'm looking at that next month. And then also consider applicants for that position. I understand Maureen's the only one that's applied right now, and the board has so far recommended her based on that. But they do agree that they should have an alternate member position. Ed Dittmer, of course, mentioned the board needs to update their Parks and Recreation Plan, which has not been done since '09. With that, that's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. Good report. Commissioner Cameron, would you like to go second?
After you put me at bottom, but that's only because I have nothing to report. I was in a meeting and Mr. Moore took my place for this month.
Oh, I knew that. Yes.
You owe me a beer.
I owe buy you a beer. All right, who wants to go next? Commissioner Moore, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll do Bob's report. The Utilities Board met on Tuesday, March 6th. We had a presentation from Brown Engineering about the Green Line alternative. And as I mentioned at our special meeting, the board did make a recommendation that to council that we consider an alternative to the Green Line, the new sewer lines for the town and new sewer plant rather than the Green Line. And they will be getting more presentations on that soon. They also discussed their board makeup, and they've had two members that have resigned or rotated off of that board, and there hasn't been a tremendous amount of interest for replacement. And the board they have is excellent board when you look at their resume. It's got lots of engineers and various background that's exactly what we need on that board, and they made the request that their makeup of their board be changed from 7 members to 5. So I'm just passing that along. I guess there's no reason why we couldn't leave it at 7 and only, and just leave them vacant, which is, unless somebody really qualified came along if they made a recommendation.
Yeah, you'd either have to modify the resolution to 5 or just leave the vacancies there
Sure.
until they're
Right.
filled.
Yeah, that seems simple enough.
I would just suggest as this sewer project gets more legs, I think there's going to be a lot of,
We may have more
a lot of
people, yeah.
work there for them.
Okay.
So.
All right, and the Zoning and Planning Board met on the second Tuesday of the month, the third Tuesday of the month, and I could not be there, and nobody wanted to fill in for me, so I have their minutes. And it was basically all a discussion of the ordinance changes that we're looking at tonight, that we're gonna have a presentation of from Brad Burton, who, even though he was there and I wasn't, would still be able to give a better presentation than I can on this, so we'll rely on Brad for that.
All right, very good. Commissioner Kilby.
The Lake Advisory Board held their regular monthly meeting here at the Municipal Center on Monday, the 5th day of March at 3:30 p.m. Lake Operations Department gave basically the same reports that we had tonight in the Marine Commission meeting. I'll touch on that just a little bit. The dredging contract is being put out again. As you know, we're going to contract a new dredging contractor, and that's being put out for bids March the 28th. We hope to have that finalized in May, hopefully, and with the dredging hopefully beginning again in September. As you may or may not know, we're not allowed to dredge after the trout spawning season begins by state law. So that applies to the river above and below the lake. So we're not able to dredge during that time, but we hope to be ready to kick that back up again the week after Labor Day to start that again. So that's the plan as far as dredging goes. Mr. Givens also gave a brief report on the Marina Boardwalk of the Slip project. That's still in the planning stage as part of the CIP, and we're working on that. We also began a discussion there at this meeting, and we had this discussion again in the Marine Commission meeting about the priority, the process that is used to determine who gets slips at the town marina. We discovered that from the beginning, when the original marina was upgraded, that a decision was made to use a first-come, first-served basis for the slips in the marina. I have suggested to the LAB, and I have suggested to the board, and they have asked the LAB to come back with a recommendation that that system be changed, that the priority not be on a first-come, first-served basis, but that the tax-paying citizens of Lake Lure should be priority in receiving slips as they become available there. So that is something that we are studying, and that is something that the LAB will make a recommendation to council on, hopefully next month, hopefully. Our environmental control officer, Clint Calhoun, gave an excellent PowerPoint presentation on the trout buffer. If you've been in many meetings with me, you've heard me make lots of comments about the trout buffer in a lake that we don't have trout. I think it would be much better if that were called the erosion control buffer instead of the trout buffer. Clint actually said that sometime back the state did a study where they shocked the fish and to find out how many different species of fish we have in the lake. And I would like to report to you that somewhere in the lake they did find 2 trout that were about this long. In 1963 is when this trout buffer was established by the Department of Wildlife for North Carolina. So it does serve a purpose. I'm not saying that maybe it shouldn't be revisited again since it was established in 1963, but that's a subject for another time. So that's my report from the LAB.
Didn't even know it.
It's a shame we found out.
Yeah, it is.
After 18 years of shoveling mud, yeah, it's over. So thank you very much for what you did. After the last one, the DOT, that's when he kind of got excited about the degree of all that, so I appreciate that. Mayor Cooley, it was refreshing to hear you say, look at all the citizens interested in the government tonight. That was refreshing to hear. But I'm up here about the 5 o'clock start time. To me, in my opinion, meetings are about the citizens. They're not about the staff. They're not about the commissioners. What's good for you? It's about the citizens. Citizens work. We're blocked out of being on a committee because we work during the day. Mm-hmm. So it'd be a shame to be blocked out of meetings. That's all I had to say.
Good. Well, thank you very much for that. Very good. And there again, if there's anyone else from the public that would like to speak.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat.
What happened to John's report on the liquor store?
We didn't have a report this meeting on the liquor store. We are working on the liquor store. I can assure you of that.
I can give that
ABC board?
Yeah, the ABC board.
Yeah,
that actually goes back several weeks ago. There's nothing, it was a regular monthly meeting where all the sales and the finances were covered by the ABC board. That board meets at the ABC store. If anyone wants to come to that meeting, it's an open meeting, as all the town meetings are. And there was no decisions or discussions or anything about anything as far as the progress on the plan to move the ABC store up the street. So that's what was done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
I appreciate you reminding us.
Sidewalk is going.
Well, you see that, yeah, with some progress there, yeah. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda, and there having been no changes to the agenda, including that, do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Yep,
So
I'll make that
moved by
motion.
Commissioner
I'll make
Karen.
that.
Is second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Weber. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, that moves us down to item number 9, unfinished business. The first item we retake up here is ordinance 180313, consideration for adoption of the golf cart ordinance for the town of Lake Lure. And there is a suggested motion to adopt the proposed ordinance on certain streets in the town of Lake Lure. And I would just then open this up for discussion. I know we have a couple of items. Commissioner Cameron, you?
Yeah, I'd like to make the council aware of the letter from Lake Lure Village Resorts. And the roads in question there would be that short span of Cutaway, and then the other very short span of, what's that? Boys Camp.
The Boys Camp? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Brain dead.
It would be from Deer Trail, down Cutaway to Boys Camp and to the gate
That's
and
correct.
back. And that's the area, oh boy, that's the area we're talking about. And all roads within the resort, which is within those 2 gated areas.
Now, are those roads private roads?
Yes.
Private roads. There we go. So, yeah.
No culverts to be replaced.
I think we ought to go along with whatever the Village Resort wants to do up there, since they're the ones primarily using those roads. But I'm wondering if we need to, since that wasn't advertised for tonight, I'm wondering if that's something that we can move forward with that part of it.
It's not a,
I think, yeah.
well, in my opinion, you're fine to go forward with it unless you,
We can.
I mean, that was a discretionary public hearing anyway, I believe, not required.
Okay.
I mentioned including this in the first meeting we ever had on this, but I wanted Mr. Raitano, if you would come back, sir. After listening to the comments about Buffalo Shoals, and I may have misspoke when I told the folks that it didn't include it. According to this, it has Buffalo Shoals in the state road number, and I thought that was a small portion of it, but the map shows almost the entirety of Buffalo Shoals Road, and from what I understand, that map is where we're supposed to draw the line. But what is your intent? How much of Buffalo Shoals did you want, or were you looking for to be included in this ordinance?
About 35, 40 yards, the first 35, 40 yards. There's a paved right-of-way that goes up into the resort, which is about 35 yards in. So that's basically it, the first 35 yards.
So he's talking right in here.
Yeah, he's talking
Right.
from here.
Right,
to
right.
there, and then there's
Yeah.
a cart path all
Right,
the way that goes
right.
over here.
So, okay, so you're talking from the intersection. Do you have a name for that path that's going up there that we can refer to in the ordinance?
Yeah, you can, the waterside, that goes into the waterside development there. So you can basically say the right-of-way that goes in, that's through the waterside development. Because that development there is called waterside.
Okay, for the purpose of the ordinance, if we said Buffalo Shoals Road, and then put in parentheses 40 yards from the intersection of Buffalo Creek Road, would that be?
That would be good, to the right-of-way entering into waterside, if you include that.
Okay, so we could fix that, okay, because I never had any intent of this going all the way out Buffalo Shoals.
We'd never either.
Okay, okay. All right, and all the roads within the resort are now listed, because they're considered public access.
Correct.
Now, we don't have to list the roads in the village because they're private, but we will say within the village, all the private roads within the village. Well, we'd identify that by name. We would say from the gate at Deer Trail, down Cutaway to the intersection of Boys Camp to the gate of the village. And that way they would be included. But yes, we already saw your letter and it's in our packet. I've been insistent upon an inspection checklist all along, and it's in there now. And that looks good, and that way the inspections are all objective and not subjective. We have a registration form, example will be there, and the liability disclaimer that all the operators would be signing. So, yeah, it looks good to me. And a lot of, everything's been fixed that needed to be fixed, in my opinion, except for that one thing about Buffalo Shoals.
I'm the same, I'm good with it, just make sure we get the village details and.
Right.
So, is what I'm hearing, we can have a motion that adopts this ordinance with these changes? Or do we actually have to have a clean ordinance?
Well, I'd like to make the motion, and I think it'll be inclusive.
Use the road.
Yeah, I've got, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 18-03-13 with amendments. And those amendments being adding a paragraph to section 73.05. And that paragraph would include all roads within the Lake Lure Village Resort and the connecting road from the gate of Lake Lure Village Resort down Boys Camp to the intersection of Cutaway Road to the gate of Deer Trail and reverse. That's my motion.
I'll be glad to second that motion.
All right. So we have a motion and we have a second?
Oh, yeah, the amendment on the Buffalo Shoals we discussed.
Steve, I know it's an amendment, not the point, but when you put the statement about all the private roads within, does that mean anybody not utilizing Boys Camp or Cutaway has to get their golf cart inspected, and even though it's staying within the village on private roads? 'Cause it sounds like that the way it's worked.
Good question.
That's not, was that your intent or not? That was
I know it's
not your intent, yeah, right, the wording.
No, the intent are for the golf course that are gonna be on the public roads to have been inspected and such.
Yeah, you have to specifically say that. If you say the private roads.
Good
included
point.
in the
Thank you.
Ordinance.
Okay.
It makes it like I take my golf cart from my house down to the beach.
Got it.
I'm gonna have to get it inspected, I'm gonna have to get it.
Got it.
I know, but the way it was just worded.
Right, got it.
That's a good point.
I need to amend the motion?
Just add a sentence that, it does
He
not
says you can do
include,
it on the fly, whatever you need to.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
does not include golf carts that don't.
Yeah, it does not include golf carts that are operated on private access roads only.
Do you accept that?
The ordinance already says that.
All right, so we have,
The ordinance already says that anyway.
Yeah,
Does
the
it?
ordinance says that.
okay. So we have a proposed motion here that amends but approves with the amendment this golf cart ordinance 180313. We have a second. Is there any further discussion about this? Hearing none, then I would call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Pull the Buffalo Shoals part out?
Yeah.
Well,
All
we
those
didn't pull it.
opposed, same sign. Thank you.
We amended it, Esther, to answer your question, amended it during the discussion to state only the 40 yards to that point from the intersection of Buffalo Shoals and Buffalo Creek. Yeah.
Okay, well, that takes care of then unfinished business item A. That moves us to unfinished business item B, the reallocation of FEMA reimbursement funds for truck purchase.
And
wait.
I can.
You want to speak to that? Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if I might digress a minute. We did not discuss the fee for the registration, which should have been there. I forgot that wasn't included.
We proposed a fee in there. We proposed the fee in there.
Where? Maybe it's on the staff sheet.
Yeah.
Didn't see that. So, yeah, that should be part of the motion, too, to approve the fee to be added to the fee schedule.
You want to do that with a separate motion?
I'm wondering what the proposal was. It's not here. Maybe it was last month.
25 and 10.
Is what?
$25 and $10 for the, or $5 for the sticker. Hold on just a second, I'll find it.
25 for the inspection and 10 for the registration sticker? And that's good for 2 years?
Sorry, 25 for each cart and 5 for each permit or decal.
Okay.
That's on the application?
That's on the application form. Okay. So, I make a motion that we add to our fee schedule, a fee of $25 for each, golf cart registration and inspection, as well as $5 for the permit, or in addition, $5 for the permit.
All right, we have motion, a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner
I
Cameron
forgot that.
seconds. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now, we move to the FEMA reimbursement funds for truck purchase. Let's look at this now.
I can't read that.
Who is handling that?
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
You want to speak to that?
that'd be all right.
Ron, you want to
Yeah.
come and just give us an overview, and then we can discuss it?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and appreciate y'all taking time to let's look at this a little bit more in depth. A couple months ago, we discussed the FEMA reimbursement funds as kind of turned out to be kind of a side note, the discussion of using some of those funds to replace a piece of apparatus that we have at the fire station. And y'all had expressed some more detailed information. I tried to provide more detail without going in too much detail, more than you wanted. I also had a chance, I want to thank Commissioner Cameron, for coming down and visiting with me to see if we'd kind of addressed most of the questions and get his input on it. So hopefully he may be able to speak to some of these concerns. But the money that was returned to the town from FEMA reimbursement, several departments got different funds reimbursed that included funds reimbursed for salaries, overtime, part-time people, and equipment usage. And what we're requesting is those funds that were returned back to the town for the fire department expenses, a portion of those, not all of those, but a portion of those which are spelled out in the request there, which would be about $40,000 of which, and I think there was approximately 55 total that was fire department funds reimbursed, that be allocated to use of replacing one of our existing apparatus, one of our older apparatuses that is in poorest condition of any that we have currently. In addition to that, and a lot of this come from Party Rock donations. During the Party Rock fire, we received, all the fire departments received some individual donations. And so we have a donations account that has a little over $20,000 in it, and we're like permission to also transfer up to, whatever we need, up to $20,000 of that money, which will give us a total of $60,000 that we could use to replace this existing apparatus that we have. And as far as replacing the existing apparatus, we briefly touched on that. That is a truck that we use currently as an equipment truck, and it carries a lot of necessary and required equipment, both for our ISO certification, our rescue certification, and just general firefighting and rescue type equipment. The current truck, as you've seen in your packet there, is a 96 model with over 130,000 miles on it, and it's kind of our worst maintenance concern as far as safety, due to it being basically right on the verge of being overweight before anybody gets in it. And I'll be glad to answer any specific questions instead of rambling on.
I'll go ahead and give you a review. I did go down and look at the truck, and the biggest problem is it's too light duty for the services being performed. What Ron and I have talked about is that if he'd meet this criteria, I'd go along with it. So first of all, I'd like to see it be a 2000 newer truck that we do purchase. It should be a diesel, should have hopefully less than 75,000 miles on it. Also, what I'm going to do is we have 2 fire trucks. We have Ron's old truck he drove that we need to approve to get sent into sale, get rid of it. And then also this truck will go into salvage as well. So we'll have 2 vehicles we can sell and get some revenue back. The other thing is we're going to take the existing winch off of this truck and put it onto the new truck. But with the age of that truck and the light duty of the truck, it's time, and since the funds are available, I'm in favor of it.
You support that?
And we'd rather do this as opposed to using that money for the $35,000 on the breathing apparatus on our CIP.
Yeah. I answered you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Does that work, Ron?
Yeah, that would be great. The things that we discussed, we're looking ideally to purchase a truck built for fire service, used one with low miles and as new as we can afford. So we'll do our best to stay within those parameters.
Would you want to make a motion that incorporates the provisions that?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to make the motion that we adopt the budget amendment. Well, I'm sorry, let's see, get up here and find it.
That's right.
Yeah, the reallocation of FEMA funds for a truck purchase, to adopt the budget amendment 214, reallocating FEMA reimbursement funding and allocating donation funds for a purchase of a truck. This truck should be no older than 2,000, hopefully no more than 75,000 miles, and the sale of the 2 existing trucks that we'll have as salvage to go forward. And also, we want to rework and reuse that winch on that truck.
Diesel?
Do we,
And be a diesel truck,
do we identify the amount of money?
and not to exceed $60,000.
We also have to, well, okay, you got a motion there,
Yeah.
and I second that.
All right, second by Commissioner Weber. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We also have to do a specific motion to make a motion that we approve the budget amendment 214 as prepared.
Go ahead. Is that your motion?
Yeah, I said I'll make a motion. that we-
Okay, and I'll second that.
Pay attention, Bob, we're moving quickly.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay.
That's 2 beers.
Council, thank you.
While we have you captured up here, looking at your monthly report, back when we approved the county agreement, specified then that we wanted to be reports on all calls. I noticed you had 34 fire rescue and EMS calls this past month or for February. So were any of those for the county under that program as opposed to your normal jurisdiction?
All of those were in our normal jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction has not expanded any.
Right.
Our capability within our jurisdiction has expanded. So I don't have that exact number as how many of those calls applied or we provided a higher level of service in front of me. I may have been under a misunderstanding that was something you might
Very
want quarterly, 6
specific, we
months.
want those separated.
So basically, in that monthly report, we can just identify how many
How
of
many of
those
those are-
medical calls that we provided a higher level of service.
Right.
Okay, so I will be
Yes.
more specific about that.
Because you also need to give us an annual report at the end of the year.
And are you breaking those out, or will you break those out? So like for Chimney Rock Park, we know exactly how many and what those calls were for.
Okay.
Because that's one of our bigger costs to us.
We can, yes, we can give you generalities. We
Right,
can't give you
that's-
addresses because of HIPAA laws, but
No, I
we can give you
understand.
generalities.
Chimney Rock Park.
So like how many went to Chimrock Park or, a good example and something that's kind of caught us off guard is we've already had the opportunity to apply some of these higher level skills at the local doctor's office where we've been able to go in and actually provide some ALS skills in the doctor's office setting before the paramedic truck arrives. So that was something we didn't anticipate so much. But I got one question real quick on the surplus property, just for clarification. And you and I talked about those trucks need to go. Do we need to come back probably with something more specific, identifying VIN numbers and all that at a later time?
We'll take care of that.
Okay. All right, thank y'all.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate that. All right, well, I've had a request, and I won't identify from whom, to take a brief 5-minute recess. And according to Commissioner Weber, I have the authority to do that without a motion. So I will go ahead and call a brief 5-minute recess, and we'll be back at it at 7:45.
Hey, Mayor or other presiding officer, may